Hello guys, it's Fhairaline and I'm here with a default replacement tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how I would default replace a hair. You can use basically the same method for clothes, and the process if you want to replace accessories is also pretty similar. However, that is a bit more difficult, so if you're not familiar with default replacements, I would start out with only hairs and clothes. You will need SimPE for this, as shown here. And let's get started. So, the first thing you want to do is to find and extract the resources that you're going to use. You never want to edit the resources directly in the game files, rather you want to extract a copy of them and work on those so that you don't mess up your install files. To find them, go to Finder, the Scenegraph Resource Finder. You want to go to Property Set Search and then type in something like this. I'm going to replace A-line from Mansion and Garden, and I've already searched for this. So I want to open this by double clicking on it, and it's going to take me to this list of all the resources that are in Mansion and Gardens. To easier extract these, I click here to sort by name. Then I can select all of these at once by clicking one of them, pressing Shift, and clicking here, and it's going to select them all. Then I can sort by instance, and it's going to get them up in a list like this. And I guess here's where you really want to use the Shift clicking to select them all. But I have all of these selected. I want to right click, extract, and you can save them somewhere fancy if you want to. I only keep these files for as long as it takes me to make the default replacement pretty much. So I'm just gonna put them on desktop, press OK, extracted 10 files. And then we want to do the same for the teen files. So I have them here. I click red, I hold Shift, and then I click here, and it selects all of them at the same time. And same here, extract, I can press Enter, and Enter. Then I want to put those in a new package. So I click Create New Package. I think you can also... No, you can't. I thought you could press Control N or something, but I guess you can't. Now I want to right click, hit Add, go to where these files are, which is on desktop, select all of them, press Enter, and then I want to do the same for the property sets. Select all of them, you can click Open or you can hit Enter on your keyboard. Then I want to save as, and this I kind of just work out of my downloads folder because it's always empty, and it appears like at the top of the list. You can save this file wherever you want. Just make sure that it's somewhere you'll remember it and where you can keep track of it. You can name this file whatever you want. I think it's good to at least have the name of the hair or outfit that is being replaced in the file, so it's easy for people to find out or to find it. So I would name this, I'm not typing, I would name this ufhair underscore A-line underscore Rudhira. Some people think you should always put the word default in a default replacement as well. I don't do that, but you can do that if you want to. But now we have this file, it's saved, and we're ready to start working on it. Now, something else you can do if you either cannot search for files in SimPE, or because you just want to make your life easier, is instead of extracting all of these files by hand, you can download someone else's existing default replacement and get the resources from there. Here I have downloaded a default replacement by Simsibility, and this is what a file will look like once it's done. You will have the 4 mesh resources, you will have material definitions, texture images, all of that. But if you look here, if I click AF hair A-line red, I look at the instance, and I click this one, you see that it's the same instance, and I can go through the entire list. You want to have a property set and a 3D ID referencing file of every instance, and you go through the list and you see that they're all there. So what you can do is either wait for SimPE to load. You can select all of these, extract them, and it'll be kind of like extracting them from the game files. Or you can select all of the other resources in this file and delete them. Either right click and hit delete, or as it says here, you can press shift and delete. And then you save, and you have a file with the same resources. I would advise you to rename the file after doing this, and only use this method if you are sure that the person you're downloading the file from has extracted all of the necessary resources and the correct resources, and that they haven't included things you wouldn't need and don't know how to remove and stuff like that. So now that we have our resources all extracted and put into the file, it's time to start linking the custom hair that we want to use as a replacement to all of these resources. I have chosen Ade Ashley, this hair, retextured in Puppet v2 by alienpod, I think originally converted by Julie J. I'll include a link to it in the description. So we want to open, I have it here. We want to open the mesh before anything else. This hair is available for teenagers, adults, and children. If I sort by name, it's even easier to see. There is a method of see, the hair we want to replace is only available for adults and teenagers. It is possible to add more ages other than that to default replacements. I'm not going to show how to do that here. So for now, we can just select these, shift click, and then shift delete, or right click delete, and then save. I want to look at the GMDC first of all, and check that the what the group names are. We have hair and we have hair underscore alpha 5. For teenagers, it's the same. These are the most common groups that you will see, at least for hairs. Sometimes you will see hairs that have other names than these. They will have different group names for different ages and genders, which can be a bit tough to work with, but this one's easy. We then want to go to the resource node, the CRES. I guess it stands for like C resource, but I don't know why there's a C there. I want to right click this. I want to extract it. And I usually put all of this just in the same folder as everything else, because that's what works for me. If you want to have it more structured, make separate folders for everything, you can do that. I will name this AF. I will extract this one, name it TF. And then you need to do the same for the shape. Right click extract AF, right click extract TF. There is one more thing that I like to include at this time. You can include it later, but that is usually with hairs like this, the group called hair will only contain a transparent texture that goes on the scalp, while the group called hair alpha 5 will contain the actual hair textures. So if we go here, alienpod bundled all of the recolors in one file, so they're all going to be here. Sometimes you will see them called like black, brown, blonde, red instead, or you will even have a separate file for the gray. If I click here, I click hair, I see that it is linked to this texture. And this texture is only a tiny transparent square. But if I click hair alpha 5 and I click this texture, it contains the actual texture of the hair. So what I like to do is at this stage already include the textureless hair group, because then I can add the same one to all the colors, all the ages, and I don't need to add a bunch of different resources. I also want to scroll down to the one for the black hair. You can pick any hair color you want, but I like always basing it on the black hair color. Like I get the scalp from the black hair color and then I'll know that that's the one I'm using. So I want to get this one. In order to extract this, I need to do the same thing here. Right-click, extract. This one I'm going to save as hair. And since it's linked to this texture, I need to extract this one as well, and I'll save that as hair. Then I'm going to open this file again, the default replacement. I'm going to sort by instance, because that's going to match up the 3D ID referencing files to the corresponding property sets by putting them next to each other in the list like this. So what I want to start doing is I want to right-click, add, and I want to add the 2 AF resources, and I want to add the hair material definition. Then I want to select one of the 3D ID referencing files for adults, and I want to empty this out. I will right-click, delete, select the next one, right-click, delete. Do that until it's all emptied out. If you're using someone else's resources as a base, this process might be a bit quicker because all the garbage from the game won't be added. I like pressing commit at this stage. Then I'll click package, and it's going to bring up this list of all the resources that are in the file. I want to get the resource node, drag it over here, the shape, and the material definition in that order. Then you can close that, press commit. Now you can do the exact same thing for all of the other ones. I don't like doing that. So what I'll do here instead is I will right-click, extract, name it AF, and then I will right-click, replace, and just replace all of these. Now I can only do this for the adult files, because these are linked to the adult mesh, and I cannot use that for the teen files. So you need to kind of split them up like this, but it's still faster than doing them all by hand. Then we can select these two, delete them, and instead add the teen resources, and do the same thing here. You empty out the 3D ID referencing file, you press package, you drag over the resource node, the shape, the material definition, and commit. And then you want to extract that so you can replace the other ones. Now, if we can add the material definition already, because the scalp group is empty, it doesn't contain any actual textures. If you have a hair with the scalp, maybe there's a scalp drawn on or something. Like if there's any sort of texture on the group, you will have to use unique ones for all of the different recolors. And in that case, you might only be able to add the resource node and the shape. But most hairs will have a blank scalp group, and then you can do it like this. And lastly, I will just delete these and save. And then we're ready to start adding the recolors. So, as with the other resources we've extracted, we need to go back to the custom hair, open the recolor file, and if they're split up by different colors or if they're all bundled in one package, doesn't really matter. It might look a bit different when you're trying to extract the resources, but it's still gonna work the same. So sort by name, I think, makes this easier. We're not gonna need to extract any of the hair resources now, the hair material definition resources, because we already have one of those that we can use for all 5 colors. But we are gonna need to extract these. And every time you have a texture, you also need a material definition. So I will extract this. I'm just gonna call it blonde because that's what it is. And then extract the corresponding material definition. And then do that for all of the hair colors. And you can name them anything you want. It doesn't really matter. What's important is that you are able to tell them apart. Since a lot of these files don't really have intuitive names, it can be kind of hard to tell them apart just based on a string of letters and numbers. Usually you will need to extract only 5 of these. If you're replacing a hair that has like custom mirror hair recolors, you might need to get a few more for whatever recolors you have. And we're gonna go back into this file. Again, this is easier if you sort by instance. Otherwise, you're gonna have to look at this and be like, okay, well, this is linked to this 3D ID referencing file. Just sort by instance, it makes your life easier. You wanna start adding the material definitions. You don't add the texture resources, you add the material definition, and that is like what links to the texture. I added the one for black hair, so I want to select the 3D ID referencing file that goes with the black hair. I want to select package, drag the material definition over, and commit. And since this hair is available for several ages, I want to do the same for teens. And then commit. And then I can do the next color. And then I want to select blonde, package. You can also, instead of always dragging it from the, what is this called? The package selector form, you can select this line, the blonde hair alpha 5 line, right click, add, and it's gonna add the same one to this one, if you think that makes it easier for you. You can also, what I do most of the time is that I just add them all at the same time. I'll look at this. This is gray. I want to look for something with this group. And maybe this doesn't make any sense, but it's what I like to do. Red will have, or sorry, brown will have this group. And I want to add that for both ages. And then red is going to be this group. And I can delete all of these now and save. You don't have to delete the resources, but I think it's easier to delete them and then add all of these back at the same time. Because let's say I'd left the blonde resources here and then I go in to add everything else. I'm gonna have duplicates of these, which isn't the biggest of deals. Your default replacement will still work, but you will not be able to compress your file if you have duplicates of the exact same resource in it. So yeah, make sure you don't have that. Generally, you should have about this many resources. Here in the material definition, for example, you will have 5 hair alpha 5 or whatever group it is for the 5 different hair colors. And then you will have one for the hair group, which adds up to 6. And then you have a texture corresponding to each of the material definitions. Now, unless the mesh is already in your downloads folder, this will not work because you're missing the mesh. Most people add the mesh into the file because it can be kind of hard to keep track of things otherwise. I would recommend that you always include the mesh in your default replacement. However, when we go to add it, you're not going to be able to see it. You need to change this to be either all files or dbpf package, and you're going to see these ones. So I want to click the mesh and open. And if you didn't delete any resources from it earlier, we deleted the 4 resources that correspond to children. You can delete them now because it's unnecessary to have a mesh in your game that's not being used for anything. It takes up unnecessary space. So you want to save, and now we have all the resources in the file. Everything we need for this to work is included, but we still need to make the game correctly read, like a recipe of sorts. We want the game to be able to correctly read all of the resources we have put into here. And you do that by editing the property sets. I will go here and show only the property sets. So there's a lot you can do with these. I'm not gonna go too into detail about everything, but the things you will need to keep track of generally will be age. 48 is young adults and adults. And sometimes base game hairs will be enabled for adults only, or base game outfits or something. And you can use this, changing it from 8 to 48 is going to enable it for young adults. And you can do the other way around. If it's 40 only, it's for young adults. 48 for both ages. Category. This one is enabled for all categories. If you want to have a hair only for, let's say, outerwear and everyday, it's going to look like this. If you want to have a hair for pajamas only, it's going to look like this. But we want this for all categories. And the thing we actually need to take care of here is basically everything below this line. There's a lot of stuff to edit, and again, I won't go too into detail with all of this because it's kind of convoluted. But this line here, num overrides, we need to change into the number of separate groups that we have. In this case, it's hair, and it's hair underscore alpha 5. So I want to change this to a 2. And you don't need to type in all the zeros and whatever, you can just type the number, press commit, and it's going to autofill this entire box. Now, I also want to edit the rest of these lines to be linked to the mesh that we're using. This group here is called hair, And we can keep it that way since we actually have one called that. This one, we need to change into hair alpha 5. And all of this we can delete because we're not going to have to use it. Now, there is one more thing you have to do, because this is not going to work. If you look at the numbers here, you will see that this one says 7, this one says 5. These are referring to the lines of the 3D referencing file, and here you start counting from 0. So the resource node is on line 0, the shape is on line 1, the first material definition is on line 2, and the second material definition is on line 3. If you look in the property set again, you can actually see it says the resource key index 0, shape key index 1. Those refer to these two lines. So we have line 0 accounted for, we have line 1. The next thing we need to use is we need to enter hair here, which is this one that we have put on line 2. So we want to change this to 2. And hair alpha 5 we have on line 3. So make sure you're correctly counting these things. A lot of the time it will be that hair is on line 2, hair alpha 5, or whatever this group is called, hair underscore alpha 5 will be on line 3. But always double check that these are in the correct order, in the correct place, all of that. But that is pretty much all we need to do to make this work. So if I put this file in the game now, the blonde recolor for adults would work and nothing else. So let's fix the other ones. It's just the same thing here. We don't have to deal with the age or the category or anything. We were happy with that. But you want to change the num overrides. You want to change this. You want to spell correctly. And you don't have to delete all of these lines. Once you set num overrides to 2, it's not going to read anything under this line, so you can just leave it. I like removing it because I think it's easier to look at what I'm working with. I think it looks cleaner, but you don't have to. Now, since I don't want to do this manually for every recolor, I'm just going to right-click, extract. I'm going to name this something like property set. And instead, I'm going to right-click, replace, and replace this. Now, this is not as simple as when you do this for the 3D referencing file. This will also affect some of the lines in here. So I want to change the hair tone back to 2 for brown. And I want to change the name. This is not as crucial because it doesn't matter, but it's easier for you to see what you're working with. And then we do the same for red. Gray is a bit special because here you will, if you do this, you will need to change the age line. It's 10 for elders. So we change this to gray, we change hair tone to 5, and then we need to make sure to change age to 10. Other than that, it's the same. You can use the same thing for teenagers. I don't need to like remake this or anything. I can use the resource I already extracted. This one for adults. However, now I want to make sure I change the name to TF. It's the black recolor, so I don't need to change that, but I want to change the name and I want to change the age to 4 for teenagers. Whenever you do this, you can look at whatever values you have in your property set already and make sure you just keep the same ones. And now I can either keep using the same property set as a base. And now I'm gonna have to change this for, I'm gonna have to change the name, the age, and the hair color. I can also just extract this one and use that as a base instead. It doesn't really matter how you go about this, just that when you're done with everything, it has to be correct. And then you save, and that is your file all put together. You can be done at this stage if you want to. I like to include as few resources as possible in my files. So what I would do here, I'm going to sort by name. And remember this blank hair group? We have the hair group, it has a texture, but then you look at the texture and it doesn't contain anything. We can't just delete it, but we don't need it. So I'm gonna delete it. And if I put the file in the game like this, it wouldn't allow me to create new Bodyshop projects because it's missing textures. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that the game doesn't ask for this texture in the first place. So go into the material definition for this textureless hair group, and all of the lines that start with std mat base texture we can delete. It will usually be 4 to 5 lines depending on how the material definition looks. Delete those, commit, save. That's open package. This is save. And now you have safely deleted that texture and the game is never going to ask for it in the first place. Now all that's really left to do is to put the file in game and try it out. Go to build sims. And since we replaced A-line, it's gonna be right at the start. You can check that it works for all colors, works for all ages. And that's all there is to it. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. You can send me an ask on Tumblr. You can send me a Discord message. It's not that hard to find me anywhere, really. I hope this tutorial was helpful. And I'm gonna release some more showing clothing defaults, adding ages to hair defaults, all sorts of fun stuff you can do. But I think this is a good base. I hope I've gone through everything you need to know. Again, if you have any questions, just ask me and I'll do my best to help you. Thanks for watching and bye everybody!